Hello, and welcome to Wine with Wita, the podcast that is dedicated to engaging with health professionals and caregivers in meaningful discussions. I'm your host, Rita Shamoon, or as my clients call me, Wita. I'm a pediatric speech pathologist, and I am so excited to have you here. Each week, we deep dive into connecting you with caregivers and healthcare professionals, sharing their insights, stories, and key takeaways to help you with your child's diagnosis and your journey. Whether you are a parent, healthcare professional, a lifetime learner, or simply a wine enthusiast, you're in the right place. So let's sit back and relax and enjoy today's episode. Hello everyone, welcome to Wine with Wita, and this is the first time I have not one, but two guests on Wine with Wita, and I'm so excited to have this episode because it's a mother-son duo where I am graced with a previous guest. If you recall, I had around November last year, Connor Bailey, who was the swim teacher of the year for learners with disability, and his amazing mother, Linda. So welcome, Team Bailey, to Wine with Wita.
Thank you.
You guys are in sync.
I know. Yeah.
I love it. Now, both of you, Connor and Linda, you are guests on Wine with Wita this week, as it is part of the collaboration for swim teachers in Australia and the initiative of Leveling the Deck. Now, this month on Wine with Wita, we are celebrating neurodiversity women and leveling the deck and celebrating women behind neurodiversity. And so I thought it would be a lovely idea to bring on Connor again and his amazing mother, Linda. Now, if you listen to our previous episode with Connor, he spoke so fluently, spoke so elegantly and optimistically about his mother and how she supported him through his diagnosis, career choices, and really shaped him to believe he is not defined by his disability, but more his ability. And so I love that Connor can share that with his students. But where did Connor learn that from? He learnt that through his mother. So Connor, the floor is yours. Please give me a brief summary of how your mother supported you along your diagnosis and through your choices in life.
The word would be probably unconditional. Like, the support that I got from my mum was next level. So whatever choice, whatever idea it was, sometimes, I don't know about that, but okay, you can find out. Or it was, yes, wholeheartedly, let's do it. Sounds great. I'll support you in whatever you need. So pretty much unconditional support, definitely. But she would tell me when I was being a bit silly.
Yeah. I love that you've used that word unconditional. And it's so beautiful that regardless of your challenges, that whatever her actions are, were always defined by her pure love for you, which all parents have for their children. What were some key takeaways that your mother would tell you frequently to support you along the way?
Would you just listen to me, please? Is probably a big one that I remember.
Stop.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yes, definitely. That's probably one of the biggest ones, is like, be like, yeah, I got it. She's like, no, you don't. I know you don't. Stop.
And I'm going to jump in here. One of the big things for Connor is that he believed whatever he was thinking, I knew it. That was part of like his diagnosis. He believed if he was thinking it, we should also know it. And that took years for him to, or for me to be able to explain it in a way that he would have to, oh, you mean I've got to say it out loud? It's like, so yeah, it was like, now did you think it or did you say it? It was, I said that so many times.
It was like he expected you to be his mind reader. And was
Yeah,
that because of the pre-assumption of, well, if I'm thinking it, so therefore, mum, you should know what I'm thinking anyway? And the
absolutely.
fact that you said it took a long time for you to, or for both of you to pretty much
Mm.
understand that, what key moments brought you to that realization?
We were actually we were with one of the occupational therapists, and I had said this early on that, he gets so cross that I don't know what he's thinking, and I'm like, and she said, "Oh
Mm,
no, it's not that, it's not that," and I'm like, "Yes, it is. I know
mm,
that that's what it is." And we were in a session, and like, he just got really cross with me because I didn't respond the way that I should, because he thought I already knew what he wanted. And so she said, "Oh, I see it." Yeah. And so it's about, for me, it was about listening to those professionals that we had, but also standing up for Connor, that, like, no, I know him better than you. Like, this is my
mm.
child. And so I'm going to, if I think it's different, I'm going to challenge that.
Mm, mm. I love how you firstly you respected the health professionals, but you also pointed, which is so wonderfully, that it is also your child, and that's how partnership happens in therapy. The health professional has all the evidence and the clinical knowledge, but you know your child the best. So working together to support the child ultimately is our goal. Now,
Mm.
Linda, when I spoke with Connor, he spoke about all the challenges he experienced through school, through employment, and it was such a wonderful insight into the life of a child when he was a child with a disability. And he
Mhm.
also spoke about the challenges of accessing services in a rural community as well. Now, I would love to know your experiences from when you started to notice concerns with Connor and through getting him diagnosed. I know we're going way back, we're going a few years back,
Okay.
but I'm sure we'll remember key points.
So when he was little, like when he was born, he didn't enjoy cuddles as much as I would have thought a baby. Yeah, and I was first time parent. He slept happily by himself. Like, he would sleep for like 6 hours a night. From like 2 weeks old, and just little things that I thought, that's not what I. And we didn't have the internet back then, so
Mm,
I had a book that was like parenting, and so I'd say, oh well, and so we adapted to the way he was. As he got older, he would line things up. He would, everything had to be smooth and in his like timetable. And that was okay because he was an only child at that stage. And so it was easy. And then we had some challenges, and that led to myself and my two children coming back to Australia. We were in England at the time. And so Connor was 4, and I enrolled him in kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher said, "I think you might need." He has trouble transitioning, and I was like, "Yeah, I know
mm,
that," but I give him warning. Just those natural things you do as a parent. In 5 minutes' time, we are going here. And so he was usually okay, but that when he started with other children, and having to move from one activity to another, for him instantly, that's when there became challenges, and that when he
mm,
couldn't just have his routine. And so that was when we started with a pediatrician. And that was a challenge. We were in
mm,
Rockhampton, and the pediatrician was a little dismissive. Um, and at that stage, Allied Health had written programs for children with autism at that stage. Though they were still calling it Asperger's back then.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
they
so
would have been.
he was the first child that the Allied Health got to put through their programs they'd written, which was great because I was like, well, of course you can use my son as a guinea pig as long as I'm involved, because I want to watch what you're doing. And so it was great. I felt like I got ground level like support and an insight into it. And it was really good. It was challenging, because it's your child, and it was kind of confronting, because you're like, well, there's something wrong with my child, and that's how, like, some people like made me feel, and
Mm.
yeah, and so it was, yeah, it was, there was some challenging times there.
Yeah. The fact that you were firstly the guinea pig in this program means you just have nothing to compare to for a progress to compare more than just only just Connor's success to treatment, but then also you getting that support you need to vent to somebody would have been quite limited because you've mentioned the stigma in the community. How did you turn to strength to keep persevering, just to ensure that you're okay as long as Connor's okay too?
I think initially it was just sheer will. It was just like,
Mm,
this is my child, and I will do the best for my child. And he has a sister who is 2 years younger. So I was a single parent with two children. She hadn't yet been diagnosed yet. That
mhm,
was that would come a few years later. Um, but it was, yeah, sheer will, and it got to the stage where I wasn't sure that I could do it. It was, there were so many challenges, and it was at that point, that I actually started studying the Bible.
mm,
And to be honest, that's what gave me the strength to keep going, because I was
mm.
pretty much done. It was just like, this is too
Yeah,
hard. I'm fighting, like health professionals, teachers, just going shopping sometimes was a challenge because of, the different environments that we would be in that would then set off different behaviors. And yeah, I was struggling. And that
yeah,
really, that changed my life, sort of thing. So yeah, that gave me the strength to keep going.
yeah. Firstly, thank you for your honesty and vulnerability with referring to your faith to help you. I feel like many families go through the same challenges, and sometimes they do lose their faith because they question, why me? Why is this happening? How can I get through this? But it's also just recognizing that your faith can also give you the strength to continue, and that the ability to know that everything's going to be okay. And I love that you've repeated that message for every parent going through that, and just to follow something that they believe in. My second point I wanted to mention, you talk about the shopping centers and the behaviors that
Mhm.
you experience. Could you just go into a bit more detail as to what you experienced?
So at that time, Autism Queensland were giving you little cards that you could hand
Yeah.
out to people when your child had a meltdown in a public place, that says, please
Can
don't
I
mind.
just laugh at that? You that won't happen now.
I know, it was so funny. I got given these little cards, like little business cards, and it says, "Please don't mind my behavior. I have autism." And I can't even remember the full sentence, but it was just like this whole spiel. And I'm like, as if I am going to walk over and hand these cards out to all these people watching my child have a meltdown. It's just,
I
but
apologize for laughing because that would be such a mortifying experience. Sorry, here, my child's, stimming. There you go. There's a card accepted and move along. Like it just
I know, and yeah, it and that was the support. So it was like, well, this is what you do, and I'm like, well, no, that doesn't work. So it was like, then it was about teaching, and that was when I sort of, I suppose, stepped in and said, no, that's not acceptable, and that you're telling me my child that I just have to deal with it. Give people a
Mm,
card. It's like, no, I can teach my child that that's not acceptable. And they were, I must admit, I was met with, yeah, not really. But
yeah,
limited knowledge themselves. This
yeah.
was 20 years ago.
It's so amazing how far we've come as a society with reducing the stigma and raising awareness around it. And when we're raising awareness, it comes with the inclusive, being included and allowing people to participate. But I love what you just said there previously. No, I'm going to teach you to understand my child. And I think that is such a powerful phrase because it's that will to educate, to
Mm,
empower others to support your child is so beautiful.
mm. Thank you. It's yeah. Well, I believe that, and
Yeah,
I think Connor is evidence that it's possible. Like,
yeah,
it was hard work. Like, oh,
yeah,
absolutely, his hard work and mine.
yeah,
But it's your child.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that element of teaching, like you want to teach society how to teach, how to understand Connor, was such a beautiful blessing for Connor now, where he's like, well, now I want to use my own lived experience to teach children who were like me, who were like me, and I can empower children and also empower parents to teach them the ability to learn to swim, which I think is such a gorgeous 360 moment there, don't you think?
I love it
Yeah.
because from early on, Connor has tried so many activities, so many
Mm.
jobs, in just and I never said no. I always just let's get everything we need to do that activity, whether it be a sport or a hobby or whatever. And then he'd be like, nope. And so then you would just put all that to one side and you would start with the next thing. But it gave him the confidence that didn't tell him he couldn't do anything, that he couldn't do something. Sometimes I'd be like, have you thought it through? As he got older. But certainly in the beginning, yeah, it was just, yep, sure, let's do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Was that your driving force also to leave the education system because you felt no, there wasn't much support for him to actually learn the curriculum, and you felt it was better for you to teach him?
Um, yeah, the biggest thing was like back then, um, when your child was diagnosed, and it was then they had to write all these like EAPs, IEPs, they
Yeah,
changed
yeah.
names all over the years. And you always had to set goals. And my goal was that my children would be happy in school.
Mm.
I didn't have educational goals because they were not happy at school. Like the environment was too stressful for them. They can learn, they're intelligent they can do it, but they're not happy because there's too much emotion, there's too much sensory input, there's just too much everything. And I guess I was always pushed to have academic goals. Um, and I'm like, you're not going to get academic goals if my child is unhappy. And
Mm.
fortunately, there was a really good principal at the school, and she was just like, I think it's a great decision that you're making. She said, it's, yeah, unfortunately, um, at that point, supporting kids with neurodiverse kid, it just wasn't the support wasn't there. They were still considered naughty.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, and I was like, well, I'm not having that.
Yeah, yeah. You touched on two really great points there, that a child needs to be happy to learn. So joy, when you have joy, you have learning abilities. So that's a
Yeah.
big point. The second point that that you mentioned was, it's on the tip of my tongue and I've missed out on it. Yeah, I forgot. Oh, it's gone. You mentioned that, but also the how far we've come as a society in 20 years. Even though on paper 20 years doesn't sound much, but we have come such a long way with empowering our education system to support kids that have autism or any disability, with letting them feel included in society and in the education system too.
Oh, I look at it now. Actually, I was talking with a friend who's a teacher aide just before, and she talking about what students she's supporting this year, and like, it's wonderful. Like it really
Mm.
is, and I'm really glad that. It's changed so much because, it was
Yeah.
tough. It was so tough.
Connor, your mum has spoken such depth about her own personal experiences. Now, I want to talk to you. What did you learn from your mum not only to support yourself and your peers, but also to help your students in your class?
Um, Probably her stubbornness, to be honest, and it's a good stubbornness. Like as she touched on, like, no, I'm teaching my child. No,
Let's change the word. We're not call it stubborn. Let's call it perseverance.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Let's
That
add
sounds
something positive. Yeah.
right.
Perseverance and
Yes,
drive.
definitely. So her perseverance and drive to sort of stick with it. Like that's what I carry in with my teaching and the training that I give to other teachers is just stick with these children. They're the most
Mm,
rewarding children you can teach because they don't experience the inclusivity. They don't experience the joy around learning, the joy of being in the water. They don't experience that if we don't have the understanding of them. So you have to have that perseverance to get through to teach them. And no, you are teaching them. You don't just settle for, oh, they don't like structure. So whoop, off they go. You don't
mm,
just settle for that. You have the perseverance to, no, we are doing it my way because this is the best thing for you. I'll get some input from you for it. And it's the perseverance to keep that structure with them and know
yeah.
that it's going to benefit them. Like mum knew what she was doing would benefit her child when people were telling her, no, that might not work, or that you don't do that, you don't do this. So carrying that with me, knowing regardless of what some may say, I know with my lived experience and watching my mum's experience that the differences I can make will work.
Mm. How do you support parents? Because you've spoken about how you support your team.
Mm,
How do you encourage parents to complete the tasks in their in their own time, but also that can help them carry that perseverance or that drive with other elements in a child's life?
definitely. So I have very open communication with the parents that of the children that I teach, um, and often, more often than not, they'll say to me like, "This is the first time they've sort of felt that their child is accepted for who their child is, rather than the behaviors they display or any number of things. Like they feel like their child is truly accepted." And so
Mm,
I'll talk fairly openly about what I do, why I do what I do, but also they can follow the structure of what I do. It's sort of like a cookie cutter mold almost. It's like, yes, I'm applying this to swimming, but it can also apply outside of swimming. So, as mum would be like, I give children time to transition. It'll be,
mm,
it's my structure, but you can have some input into it, but I know this is the best for you and I'll explain it, but this is what we're doing. You can choose maybe XYZ, but the rest of the alphabet is my choice. And as
yeah.
well, enforcing the consequences. Like
Mm.
there is structure, and if you don't have consequences, you don't have structure. So,
Sorry,
yeah.
that's actually Connor was told. I was told that he would never understand consequences.
Really?
Yeah, that
Wow.
it wasn't a concept that he could understand, and I was like, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. How did you
Perseverance.
teach? That's a
Perseverance, yeah.
perseverance right there.
Oh, absolutely. Because to me that was huge, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And to be honest, he didn't understand those consequences. Like there was a
Mm,
gap
Mm,
somewhere in those misfiring neurons. There was a gap, but we did it. Like it was, yeah, and so it is possible.
How
and
did you
that's a
teach him the element of consequence? Was it just on when a situation would occur, you would demonstrate the consequence and then link it back to the language? How would you model that for him?
Oh, look, it was. it was because we had no knowledge. Like it was no, so like now, like it's like, yeah, okay, with this and that and what, but then it was just like, okay, so I would explain it. And then we would sit down after everything that went wrong and we would take it apart and say, okay,
Yeah.
what could have been different? And I think
Yeah.
that probably one of the funniest, I don't know if it's funny, my daughter won't think so. We had a relative come over and see our garden. We were growing lettuce and
Connor's
tomatoes.
face.
He's not going to like. And so she said, saw a grasshopper on things, and she said, "Oh, you must kill those. Like, you don't want grasshoppers in your vegetables." So my children sort of, listened to this. Connor was 9 and Charlotte was 7, and a few days later, I'm inside and I hear this scream, like, it's that scream that someone's actually really hurt. And I come out and Charlotte is there holding a very dead grasshopper and Connor is standing there with 2 bricks
Oh,
because he was told to kill the grasshoppers. Well, he didn't understand that in Charlotte's hand, that involves her fingers. And so it was just like, oh, and
so
and
he
that's,
got the
hey,
bricks while she was holding the grasshopper.
yes. Yes,
Oh,
and he killed the
Connor.
grasshopper, but he kind of like really hurt her fingers.
And I didn't understand why I was in trouble because I did what I was told and I killed the grasshopper.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you teach that consequence, Linda?
Well, it's like, do we like it when Charlotte cries? No, we don't. And so you've made Charlotte cry. So how will you kill the grasshopper next time? And there was no special language at that time. It was just consistency. Every
Yeah.
single explaining that there are consequences and what choice could you have made. And yeah, those were long years. But he got it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
And taking that into my industry, I feel like the consequences factor is still a massive meltdown point. Like they make the choice. And as mum said, generally we don't understand consequences, but especially in swimming, you need to understand the consequence
Yeah.
of if you are silly, it could literally mean your life or death.
mm,
So the consequences
Mm.
need to be there. And that's generally what I find is my biggest meltdown point is I'm fairly lenient, but I have my boundaries. You've pushed my
Yeah.
boundary. You've made a bad choice. This is the consequence. We're going to sit on the side. And then that is generally the meltdown point. And sort of trial and error through what mum did with me growing up, I've sort of found the way that works best for me and seems to work best for the kids is like when they're in that sort of meltdown moment, you've given the consequence, or even just before, it's like those short sort of key words in your sentence to, I don't know, convey why the consequence is happening, the duration of the consequence, and then what happens afterwards. My behavior towards you is not going to change after the consequence, but we have to have the consequence. So
Yeah.
definitely
I'm really
what mum did helped me.
Yeah, I'm really loving that we're talking about consequence here, and especially in the field of disability and swimming. There has been a growing rate of children with, particularly with autism, with high drowning rates at the moment.
Mm,
And it's about, I know there's lots of work behind the scenes with prevention and society and education, but it comes back down to also the parenting and knowing how to
mm.
support their child. Are you currently teaching lots of families and children the idea of consequences and how that could lead to drowning situations?
Yes, definitely. So I'll always educate the child who has made the bad choice. Do you understand why Mr. Connor sat you on the side?
Mm,
No, massive meltdown, big emotions. It's like, okay, we'll breathe through the meltdown first. Mr. Connor sat you on the side because you thought it was funny, or some other word. You decided to jump into the pool head first. If you hit your head on the
mm,
floor, what happens? I hurt my head. Do you want to hurt your head? No. If you hurt your head, you will be you can be stuck underwater. do you want to be stuck underwater? Well, no. Okay,
Mm.
stuck underwater is bad. And it's just going through those slow steps. And I encourage parents to do that as well because they experience the same thing, consequences, as mum said, at home,
Mm-mm.
very hard to enforce. And it's just showing them that, yes, there is a meltdown in it, but it's worth it at the end. It's worth putting that work into those consequences. I've never sort of had to use, like, well, look at me. I turned out fairly okay.
Yeah,
I
no,
haven't
no.
had to use
Mm-mm.
that line yet. But yeah, it's
Actually, meltdowns, that handling meltdowns was um, one of the many occupational therapists we'd met over the years. There was one that had a really good, I don't know what you would say,
system.
yeah, maybe system for handling meltdowns. And that was pretty key because they're hard, you know,
Yeah. I think
and
when you mentioned the bricks and the grasshopper, I applaud you for being so patient and being so consistent with your communication, because myself as a mother, I would have thrown that brick somewhere or just cracked it. But what I want to mention, do you hear your voice in Connor when he was explaining to the children the steps so you don't want to drag? Because as he was
Yes.
describing the sequences, all I
no,
could think of, Linda, that's how you spoke to him about the bricks and the grasshopper.
I know,
And I
I
was just, I
know.
was like, wow, that is so beautiful to witness.
I said a phrase the other day and like I love my mum, but I was like, oh, I'm turning into my mother. Like we all have those moments in our lives where we're
Yeah,
like, I'm never going to be like my parents. Like they're old and not cool. I don't know, like that sort of thing. And then
yeah,
I said a phrase. I can't even remember the phrase I said, but
yeah.
I said it exactly how my mum says it, with the exact same intention behind it. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm turning into my mother. I love my mother, but I'm turning into her.
Did you use like some hand action too that accompanied what you said?
It wouldn't have surprised me because mum does talk with her hands.
Oh, love it,
Mm.
love it. I love it. Now, Linda, so when Connor said to you, Mum, I want to become a swimming coach or a teacher, how did you navigate that? A whole
Oh,
new field.
it was a whole new field. We'd gone from what were you doing?
I was a jackaroo
A
before.
jackaroo before that, yeah. And I'd seen this the wear and tear on his emotions with that, and so I was happy for him to change industries. But yeah, when he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be a lifeguard," I think it was first, and I'm like, "Okay." Because swimming was one of those things that he had tried when he was younger, and it's like, "Nope, don't want to do that," and so it was like, actually, we stuck with that for quite a long
Mm.
time, swimming. But like a lot of things, it was like, no, I've done that now. I want to move
Can I
on.
interrupt you just there? Why do you know how you said he said, "No, I don't want to do that." What
Mm.
was the turning factor for him to refuse to complete a task? Was it because it was too hard in his mind to complete, or there was no joy? What was like for if we use swimming as an example,
Mm.
why did he turn it down so instantly?
He had completed it. He'd done the races. He got a medal. He'd finished that task.
Yeah.
So it was time to move on to something
Okay.
else. It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, he'd completed it. So, yeah, it was at that stage, it was still like looking for, because I was always told that he would have something that would be his passion.
Mm.
And that was said in front of Connor. And I suppose subconsciously we were looking for that thing. And I was happy to support whatever he wanted to do to find that area where he would be comfortable and that he could flourish. And yeah, so we did an awful lot of things he tried, but that was fine. And then, yeah, so then he came home and it was like, yep, I am going to be a lifeguard. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, all right.
And how long did that last?
this was the start of his in now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was, I don't know,
2019.
2019.
I decided to be
So
a
what are we
lifeguard
now?
and a
Oh,
duty
wow,
supervisor.
wow.
Yeah. Because we were living further in the middle of nowhere,
Mm.
Queensland, and there was a swimming pool, and that was probably about his only other option for work.
Mm.
And yeah, I steadily saw that love of teaching kids, and then the empathy that he had, which I was, he'd always had that with friends and their children, and but it was really good to see him find his niche, to find where he was happy. So
Yeah.
that was good. Yeah.
And I love that you've mentioned the word happy, that you said when you were setting goals, like they were targeting
Mm,
academic goals. And you said, well, my child's not going to be happy. And I guess now that you're able to see him fulfill a successful career that not
mm.
only supports many individuals, but brings him so much happiness too. I can only imagine how much joy that brings you, Linda.
Oh, ab- it honestly, the hard work, that, and the tears, and the, meltdowns, mine as well. It was just like, it's all worth it,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't change it. Like, even though we know so much more now, certainly about the autism spectrum, and we know so much more, I still wouldn't have changed it. Like, it was,
Yeah.
we learnt, and we did it as a family, and it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What a beautiful story. What a gorgeous story of neurodiversity, empowering someone's strength, supporting their ability, finding strength yourself with whatever way, through, in your example, through faith, but also, as what Kalno described you, perseverance and patience to get you through. And what a remarkable example of all your gorgeous work, Linda. And look at the success of Connor now. Like, I am just in awe of both of you. And as a young mum myself, you have inspired me now to just be that little bit patient and persevere through many challenges that our children present with.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Before we wrap up for today, Linda, I'd love you to share any words of wisdom for any parent going through that challenging moment of their child's diagnosis or disability, like the tantrums in the shopping centre, or when someone says, "Oh, what's wrong with your child?" Although you get those glares, what could you tell a parent now?
I guess it would be that no matter what your child is doing, they are still your child, and
Mm,
you love them, they love you. What they're doing now is a moment in time. It will pass, and you will get through it. Believe in your own ability to know your child, and that, take what help you can, but temper that with your own knowledge of your child.
yeah. So beautiful. So beautiful. Now, Connor, what would you tell a young adult that is neurodiverse, or a parent, from your own lived experience, and how you can empower them to cope through the challenges that they may face?
Mm. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. No matter how long the
Mm,
tunnel feels, how dark the tunnel gets, there's always light at the end. It took me a long time to find my niche, to find and to understand properly what my mum did for me. I probably still don't fully understand what she did for me. Um, but it took a long time to find what I wanted. 2019, so 20 years of being on this earth, trying to find where I fit, how I fit. Um, 20 years of learning, struggles. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I wouldn't say I'm out of the tunnel. I'm still probably in the
mm,
tunnel. The tunnel sometimes just gets a bit longer some days, but there's always something to look forward to at the end. It's hard work. Some days it sucks. Some days it's
yeah.
amazing, but there's always light at the end.
I love that. You have shared such wonderful words of wisdom that will support so many families, but also empower educators as well to know that there will be hard days, but with perseverance, patience, and strength, you will get there. You will get there. Now, thank you again, Linda and Connor, for coming on Wine with Wita for this remarkable episode. Before I finish up, Connor, you've done this before. I always ask my guests, if you were to make a better version of yourself tomorrow, Linda, what word will you apply to yourself today?
Well, I'm going to say patience.
Of course. I love that word, and that suits you beautifully. Do you want to elaborate just a little bit? Why patience?
Because with patience, you can achieve anything. If you've just got that, if you can just be patient with yourself, with others, it, yeah, everything works.
Yeah. Thank you. I love that. Again, thank you, Linda and Connor, for being wonderful guests on Wine with Wita today. I can't wait to see your work in action at SwimCon later this year. But for anyone who wants to know more about Connor or to reach out to Connor to understand his story, I'll leave his Instagram hashtag handle, or not Instagram, Instagram handle in the show notes. And feel free to give him a message just to understand more, or even attend SwimCon later this year to watch his wonderful work. Again, thank you, both of you, for coming on Wine with Wita. And for everybody else, another episode of Wine with Wita is coming very soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Wine with Wita. I hope you found some new inspiration, learnt something new, or gained a fresh perspective. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you please leave a 5-star review, as it really helps the show get in the ears of new listeners, plus it takes 5 seconds. If you're keen for more strategies and insights, then head over to Instagram and follow RS Speech Pathology.